I don't think he ever left once the war had kicked off. So yeah, and there was a time when he went missing for that after a while, and people were speculating that he had been killed, and then he came back a few months later,
right.
And then we got the situation that's happened now. So yeah, rest in peace to him, man. That sucks.
It's horrible. Well, I mean, my frustration is that this is exactly what myself, Luke, many others have been warning about for the longest time. That if we continue to have this, policy of provocation towards the rest of the world, while simultaneously having countless bases all over the world, including inside of Syria. I didn't even know we had troops that were in Jordan.
Yeah, I was actually, my question was, why are American troops in Jordan? Like, am I just missing? Is there like a whole piece that I've just missed or something? Because I don't even know why American troops are in Jordan.
I think the truth is that we have bases in the majority of countries. I mean, it especially the Middle East. It's probably easier to find a country that we don't have a base in.
Especially bases surrounding Iran, which we know from even members of the U.S. military who came out and said there's secret plans out there to bomb Iran, to start a war with Iran. And if you look at the map, there are bases all over, and it used to be in Afghanistan, no longer there. But there's a crap ton of weapons. There's a crap ton of U.S. equipment that has been thrown into the Middle East, specifically also into Syria, where we financed a lot of the Wahhabist rebel groups that were there to take down Bashar al-Assad, and then just created a global jihad as well, which was, I think, something worth noting and something worth thinking about, especially now when we have a terrorist attack on American soldiers. Who's responsible? Again, we shouldn't be jumping to conclusions. We should wait until all the news reports come in. Automatically, yes, the United States is geopolitically opposed against Iran. Iran has been financing the Shiite groups inside of that region that go against the Sunni groups. But who's responsible here? Well, again, lots of radicalized groups, lots of crazy individuals. But do you blame Iran now? Do you say, you know what? They're somewhat affiliated. They have the same ideology. They have the same kind of religious notions here. Screw it. Let's just attack all of them because they're somewhat partially responsible here.
Well, normally I would reserve judgment because, as you said, we do not know who's ultimately culpable in this attack against American troops, which, by the way, we haven't said anything in terms of condolences to the American soldiers' families. Three Americans already lost. Who knows if the others that have been injured, how close they are, or if they're, if it's minor injuries, hopefully. But the reason that I'm forced into the box of having to have a firm opinion on this early on is because we have people like Senator Lindsey Graham that are out there saying, hit Iran now, hit them hard. He's been saying this for 9 months now. He's been saying it before Hamas even struck Israel. This guy has been on the war path against Iran my entire adult life, and that's not an exaggeration. So I just want to remind people that if we have our troops over there in allegedly sovereign nations that we have no moral or legal right to be interfering in their geopolitical situation, well, when we get hit back, you have to realize that's part of the game that we're playing, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, well, these warmongers need to go fight their own wars. Like, go fight their own wars. Go send their own children out there, and let's see how keen and gung ho they are on it all when they've actually got something on the line, and they're not just sitting there totally protected thousands and thousands of miles away from it at all. Like, it's exhausting. I know it's the whole story of history, but when I read certain things in history, I actually have respect for old school warfare where like the kings would go out into the battle themselves, because it's like, okay, well, you're putting your own life on the line, whereas now you've just got some guy, people in suits sitting in DC or wherever it is, sending thousands, sometimes millions of other people's sons and occasionally daughters to go die in distant lands,
or oligarchs saying, you know what, the poors could fight this war for me, as of course the rich kids don't get the same treatment, don't have to go be drafted, don't have to go to the front lines, and of course are not only given cushy positions, but in many instances just told, hey, yeah, you could go to the UK. Hey, you could go to the United States. There was a lot of criticism recently against Benjamin Netanyahu because his son, who is of fighting age, is hanging out here in Miami. And a lot of people have been, drafted. You have to be in the military in Israel. Yes. There's no kind of getting out of it for most of the local population. So I do agree with you. It was more honorable where you had the king on the front line saying, I want to fight this war. I'm going to have my people die for this conflict, but I'm going to risk my life too.
Yeah, and they'd
We
normally
don't
be
have
there
that.
with, their sons will be there as well. It's like, okay, well, at least skin in the game, man.
Yeah.
Skin in the game.
But
It
I mean,
changes the incentives.
What do we have now? We have, if there's any strike on America or even a threat of a strike, the president immediately goes into his bunker. I mean, that's literally protocol, is that the top guy is immediately put into the highest level of security, while the American soldiers are just thrown onto the front lines against, God knows who.
Yeah.
But this is as we're getting news reports right now, specifically of intense aircraft activity allegedly happening right now near this Jordan-Syrian border, as of course a lot of people expect the U.S. to respond very quickly here, as Tucker Carlson took to X and declared effing lunatics, highlighting two tweets from U.S. members of the House of Representatives. One from Lindsey Graham saying, hit Iran now, hit them hard, and Senator John Cornyn saying, target Tehran. Yeah, that's just an absolutely horrible idea. It is a
Target
bad
Tehran,
idea.
just what? Just attack the capital? Just
Yes. Just like, a whole bunch of civilians living there, a whole bunch of people there. Just attack all of them. Why not?
He can
right?
go, man. He can go. Send him.
Yes.
Send him. If he's that keen on it, send him.
It's not like he has a lot of children that will, of course, be inheriting this earth after him. That's also another aspect that I think is pretty important to kind of understand here. But yeah, a lot of these people, the Nikki Haley's, the neocons, the bloodthirsty war hawks, they don't have any skin in the game. A lot of them don't have any children. A lot of them don't even give a damn. And they're taking checks from industries that profit off of war, that profit off of death.
Yeah.
And to me, there's nothing more kind of vile. There's nothing more kind of evil than individuals selling the future of their country for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's fair to simplify it this way, but how else do you kind of describe it, especially when you see the over-aggressive measures by the U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East that has been largely setting up U.S. soldiers in a position to have them under attack?
Do you know what's what as someone who has traveled the world fairly extensively, I've been to 43 countries and every continent except Antarctica, and spoken to just hundreds of thousands of people, I think one of the biggest psyops that exists in the world, and perhaps it's been this way probably at least for centuries, which is the fact that right now we're talking about the U.S. government and the troops and people on the ground and civilians and so on, but it doesn't even matter the country. It doesn't matter the government. The situation is always you have these people in power who are up in high echelons and they're physically protected and they're disconnected from the thing, and millions, hundreds of thousands to millions of people, innocent, normal, law-abiding people, always end up fighting, suffering, dying, getting shot, getting bombed, whatever the situation is. It's like they want you to think. I think there is a psyop in this country itself to make people believe, okay, who's our enemy? Oh, it's the Chinese, it's the Iranians, it's the Russians, it's what. Those are just normal people like yourself, right? It's crazy. I have this conversation in different parts of the world. I spend a lot of time in the Middle East. I spend a lot of time here, wherever it is. And wherever you go, most people are just normal citizens. Most citizens are not huge fans of their own governments. Right? The American people are the greatest critics of the American government. And I don't think the American people would quite like it if other individuals or nations around the world judged the general populace of the USA based off of the government's actions.
Right.
But people don't often offer that same kind of courtesy, right? There's this idea, the Russians are the bad. Oh, the Iranians are the bad. It's like, dude, Iranians are just normal. 99% of the population is just like chilling, working, looking after their family, just being normal. So when you see those kind of posts there where it's just like, attack Tehran. This is not some city filled with millions and millions of terrorists or jihadis or something. This is like a city just full of millions of normal people.
Yeah, like 99.99% normal people.
Of individuals that just want to live their lives, that
Exactly.
just want to provide for their family members,
the
that if
same.
you would look into their eyes, you would
Yes.
understand that this is absolutely unreasonable, that this is absolutely critically insane to want to take their lives for
Yeah.
what?
It's crazy. This is my default position on all of these things. People are, what's your take on Russia, Ukraine? What's your take on Israel, Palestine? I'm like, dude, it's the same dynamic. You've just got normal people. The vast majority of people dying are just normal people, everyday citizens. They haven't done anything wrong. They're just happen to be born in a place where this conflict is going on. And now they're on the receiving end of it. Whether this is Russian people dying, this is Ukrainians dying, it's Israelis dying, Palestinians dying, whatever. The truth is, the people who are stimulating all of this and funding all of it and cheering it all on, they're not at risk. Like they're far away. Sometimes they're not even in the same country. They're just chilling off somewhere, giving all these commands and orders and whatever it is. And yeah, man, it's whack. It sucks.
It's the same. I mean, ironically, it's the same argument that Osama bin Laden made against America. It's this collectivist mindset that you are ultimately, because, and he kind of was using this in a sarcastic way, in my opinion, but he was saying that, well, you have a democratic system. You want to spread democracy to the Middle East, right? Well, you voted for these people, so everything that they do in your name. So you're held responsible. Whereas the people in the Middle East, oftentimes, they don't have a vote. So how can you possibly hold them to account? I would argue it's equally absurd to hold us to account for what Joe Biden or Donald Trump does, because I don't want them to be killing anybody. But this is the problem with collectivism and not seeing people as individuals. If you see what Vladimir Putin did in response to the provocations from the U.S. empire and the State Department and Zelensky and all the insanity, these are elites that are playing chess with pawns that are innocent human beings, and it's always that way.
But they're also, people are kind of guilty passively by benefiting off the system and not stopping it. Like if our country goes to war in the Middle East, like we have had cheaper materials the last 10 or 20 years, and haven't overthrown our government because we want to stop it. So we're kind of like, yeah, I don't like it, but
you
all
get
the
cheap
benefits.
Chinese communist goods.
Yeah,
I think it's also just a lack of awareness, man. It's difficult. One of the hardest things in life is sort of knowing what to care about and how much to, right? Because we've all got opinions, and we're able to sit and have these type of discussions and beam it out to lots of people around the world, which is dope. But it's like we've all ultimately only got control of our own selves, our locus of control. So it's hard. Like if you were to try to take in just the daily news every day from all around the world, you can't even take it in from one country.
Right.
But every single day there's terrible things happening. There's atrocities. There's this going on, that going. You can't even keep track of it all. And there's something in your human brain which is like, man, you want to care and empathize and feel, and you do, but also you can't. If you truly, on a deep level, like cared about everything, well, number one, you can't do anything about it. If something bad happens in the north of Nigeria tomorrow, like we can be like, man, that sucks. Or this thing that's just happened, we're like, this sucks, but we can't really do anything about it. Yep. So I think en masse, what tends to happen collectively is, either people just don't know, they're just uninformed, or even if they do know, even if they read the article, it's like, no, that sucks, rest in peace. I wish that wouldn't happen, but it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, well, a good example is, in the 1960s, there was a very, very vibrant anti-war movement. And I think it's because we had a very narrow scope of news. Like we had CBS and we had Fox and NBC. I don't even know if we had Fox back then, but ABC. It would be, 3 channels. That the war is happening. Everybody knows either has a family member that's been in Vietnam and was injured or killed, or they know someone who was in that situation. Now, what's remarkable and also disheartening to me is that we have been at war. The American empire has been my entire adult life, and we're just extraordinarily jaded because the casualties that we take because we're so advanced technologically are minimized. So most of us don't know anyone that's been harmed directly, but it doesn't change the fact that the casualties on the other side are extraordinarily profound. But we just kind of we glaze over. We're like, the reason I bring it up is because I was at the End the Damn Wars rally in D.C. in January of last year, so almost 12 months to the day, and 500 people maybe, and it's like we're risking World War III with the largest nuclear power on Earth in Russia. And the best I could do was get 500 people out there. It's like, it's mind blowing.
But at least we have very competent leadership in the White House right now, like Joe Biden, who don't bumble during their speeches, who are very coherent, who are on message, know what they're doing, and are sending a very clear message to the world that we got it handled here, that no matter what the problem will be. As of course we now have a new speech by bumbling Joe Biden, who is coming out and saying that Donald Trump is the sitting president of the United States. These are the latest statements that were given out by this crazy old geezer who, for some reason, still is the representation of U.S. hegemony.
That American consumers are facing real confidence in our economy we're building. Let me tell you who else is noticing that. Donald Trump. Did you see what he recently said about that he wants to see the economy crash this year? The sitting president. As they say in my face, bless me, Father.
Yeah, the sitting president of the United States, who, of course, was just fined $80+ million for defamation and is facing 750+ years in jail after, of course, massive Department of Justice and states aligned with the Democratic Party going after him for not doing his paperwork correctly enough.
I got a positive spin on this one.
Uh-huh.
Biden doesn't know he's president. He can't order a strike against Iran. We might be better off.
But I think he doesn't know that he can't do that when he's not president.
That's wild.
Honestly, even if he knows he's the president, he's not the one that's ordering these strikes, folks. I'm sorry. Like it's so obvious, especially after Donald Trump tried to remove our troops from Syria and the generals lied to him. If Joe Biden were to order a strike that they didn't want, they just totally ignore the order. And if they want to strike something, they're going to go to his Secretary of Defense and say, "We're doing this."
Who's they, though?
Well, I can't talk about that.
Yeah, didn't Trump give command of the drone war programs to like the generals of the military now? So the president doesn't have authority. It's like
Donald Trump gave the disposition matrix to the CIA and the U.S. Pentagon, essentially allowing them to execute any American citizen they want outside the rule of law, outside of any kind of court hearing. So that power is now within the CIA, within the Pentagon.
And is it foreign people too? If the CIA wants to drop a drone bomb somewhere, they don't have to run
it's
it through?
specifically for American citizens. But obviously the United States has been dropping a lot of bombs, especially under the Barack Obama administration that calculated how many drones they dropped where and the civilian casualties. Trump, when he got into office, actually made sure that there was very little reporting of those drone strikes and the deposition matrix. So we know Barack Obama killed about, I think it's argued 7 to 8 American citizens, one of them a teenage American boy. That was killed, but what happened under Trump's administration, we hope wasn't as significant as it was under Obama, but we still don't know because the numbers haven't been released. Because
How many
he made
non-American citizens did Obama kill?
Huge amount.
7. Non-American citizens. That's a good number. It's going to be very hard to kind of calculate that, to be quite honest. But he also came out and gave very surprising interviews where he even kind of caught himself and said that he's not proud. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he came out and he was like, I'm not really happy with my foreign policy, with the effects I had on this world. And when you look at what happened to Trump in Syria when he was trying to get troops out of there, and the U.S. military told him, yeah, they're out, when they weren't, highlights that there is a day, that there is a military-industrial complex, that there is a higher power bigger than the executive, bigger than the commander-in-chief in Washington, D.C., that is essentially saying, bomb this country, start this war, allow this incident to happen. Some people say it's intel agencies.
This is a general question to you guys because I don't actually know what all your perspectives are on this. But as Americans who are very much politically tuned in, what do you think America's general foreign policy should be? I mean, throughout our entire lives, it's just been this weird U.S. Team America global police sort of thing, bases all over the place. But like, what do you think it should be? I know people who take the complete non-interventionist stance. Some people are somewhere in the middle. Then, of course, you've got the warmongers who were criticizing. But what do you think? What do you think the general policy should be?
Trade, allowing countries to interact and to have commerce with each other. Mm-hmm. And I think prioritizing diplomacy, prioritizing shared interests, working together, rather than just kind of beating down the U.S. petrodollar and demanding that be the reserve currency of the world. You could do that in an advantageous way where it doesn't involve dropping bombs on people. It doesn't involve just military hegemony and U.S. bases all around the world. It involves just a kind of non-interventionist policy that respects people as well.
Do you think all these bases, I don't know I have no idea how many bases there are all over the world, but I'm assuming it's at least in the hundreds.
On the surface,
I think it's.
They could be a lot underground.
700 if
700. Oh yeah. Do you think those should be like
brought back.
closed down and brought back?
Yeah, I'm an anomaly. I'm a very hard non-interventionist, so I don't think that my opinion is reflective of the broader American, voting population.
Just really quick, I'm getting a report here from overseasbases.net. 625 base sites
There you
all
go.
over the world.
So
Okay,
close.
600 plus, yeah.
I guess it's 700, but yeah, I'm a hard non-interventionist. Every lie that we've been in has been predicated off of lies. The end goal is never what we're actually sold it's going to be. Iraq's a great example, but basically every war in my lifetime has been founded on deceit. But more importantly, at this junction, other than the innocents that are left in the wake of these catastrophic immoral decisions, which is the most tragic of all of it. But the real pragmatic answer is that financially right now, $34 trillion in debt, over $1 trillion in interest on our debt alone, which is more than we spend on national defense. We're literally going to implode economically if we continue on this path. So there's, for moral and pragmatic and financial and economic, all of the reasons we have to withdraw from the rest of the world and allow for these other power brokers to maintain control of the trading lanes and keep them safe. It kind of give them their own sphere of control, which is all China and Russia have been asking for the longest time. The truth is, we're trying to hold on. It's this Thucydides trap where it's like, are we going to go to war with these guys because we're unwilling to take a step backwards?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I'm curious what Ian thinks.
There's so many existential threats to the world. There's so many things that we have to deal with, whether it comes to like natural disasters. I think really some countries have things that other countries want. Other countries have what that other country wants as well. Just trading for it and then working together to try to maybe expand the human consciousness and the human race to outer space. It's something that I think would be a lot more advantageous than just by giving Halliburton and all these other military contractors a pound of flesh and all of our tax dollars. Yeah. This Federal Reserve banking system absolutely serves no one. It robs everyone of their wealth. Inflation is one of the biggest taxes on the poorest people of this world, and we're dealing with a lot of taxes, a lot of theft. So if we all kind of worked together, shared, traded, and worked towards expanding consciousness and humanity, that's a lot better off of a deal than what we're doing right now, which, again, is going to come back around and screw over not just America's interests, but the American people as well that are paying the price for this with this banking system. As, of course, we also got reporting now from Al Jazeera that is highlighting an infographic highlighting how the United States now has over 750 bases in at least 80 countries worldwide and spends more in its military than the next 10 countries combined. That's a lot of money.
That's insane.
That's a lot of interest.
That's insane.
That's a lot of banksters being very happy with that. But what are we getting for that money? What are we doing for this?
Especially when you even account for like population size.
Yes.
Right. So both India and China have triple the population.
4x, yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 4 times the population of the U.S. And that, man, the next 10 combined aren't you?
And then when you add on, once you have that scale in mind, now think about the fact that our interest payment in the next 12 months is going to be 150% of that dollar amount that we just discussed. That's what our national defense, our interest is that much bigger than that. Ian, you've always struck me as like both like this Buddhist peacenik, but simultaneously you will veer into kind of an authoritarian tendency that always catches me off guard. What is your perspective on our military-industrial complex?
Yeah.
And
put them in the gulags and make them all make graphene, right, Ian?
I don't know. No. Let me
You
word
got
this.
really happy. I saw that smile there for a second.
Shutting down military bases, I don't think would be a good idea because if we're in one world and if people start polluting the world, someone needs to make sure that we don't shit in the river upstream.
Do you mean when you say polluting, are you using that metaphorically or just literally?
Literally,
actual polluting?
destroying the air and the water. We got to protect.
You want
that.
our militaries to control emissions and things like that?
I would love to see the United States lead a coalition with China, Russia, and India to preserve the Arctic, for one, build space elevators all over the planet to induce like space travel and space transport, but also build solar power water condensation. Like go to places that don't have water and build them water, get them clean water. It's like goodwill missions, things that we can do with our military to reparations for what we've done the last 70, 80 years being the global police. We can still kind of police the planet without destroying it, I think.
But we don't, though.
Yeah.
But that'd be what I'd like to see.
There's no incentive to.
Yeah, the incentive would be like, hey, pay it forward.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my issue is like we have the largest military in human history, and they're not doing any of that, and yet you still think it's a bad idea to pull back. I mean, they're not over there regulating pollution. They're over there, if anything, they're over there to get the mineral rights for things that ultimately pollute the earth.
I've actually heard that if the American military was a corporation, it would be the most pollutant corporation on earth.
No,
it is disturbing.
It actually is.
Yeah.
But like hydrogen fuel is a real thing, and we have these ships in the Navy that run off hydrogen. They never have to refuel. They just take salt water on board. They turn it into hydrogen.
If you look at the biggest carbon emitter, it's the U.S. military.
Wow,
it's
I didn't
disturbing
actually know
as hell.
that, but it doesn't surprise me.
No, absolutely not.
So-
I mean, there's still so much of the earth we haven't even discovered ourselves. There's so much of the ocean we haven't even understood ourselves. We haven't even been or seen. There's so many things that we could be doing as humanity that's so disappointing because we're caught in this kind of like ego trip kind of world where it's like, no, we got to show toughness and we got to destroy someone else and show them that we could do this. And I'm like, we could not too.
The thing is, I have a question actually. So the U.S. has 750 or so bases around the world, 80 different countries. Do you know what the second country is with the most?
I'm going to look that up right now as you guys will.
I'm curious because it's interesting because if any other country were to have that, if China or Russia or even India, which is not considered as much of an aggressor, were to have just so many bases scattered all these different continents and countries, it's like I think we're kind of used to it because it's the US and it's been that way our whole lives. But I think if you kind of step out of that frame and just think of it neutrally, it's a completely insane idea.
Yeah, to think that a Chinese military base fully armed with nuclear weapons in Cuba,
Yeah,
or like in
all
Vancouver,
over, like in Germany,
or in the
Germany
United
and, like,
States.
Yeah, just scattered all over the place.
It would be. What do you say? It would give me a nervous feeling in my stomach.
Yeah, and it does to a lot of people around the world.
I'm looking
Rightfully
up
so.
the second country.
And like, I'm not saying we need to shut down tomorrow and just start, but I feel like we have control of like Libya, for instance, like a puppet state. We could start rebuilding that, but like just like for the people. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm talking about like what I would do with the military from a very distant kind of ignorant perspective.
I mean, what is the net benefit you see in the current paradigm?
That in 20 years, those kids that watched us build their families' riverways and things would be like, I love America.
No,
America saved my life.
But that's predicated off of what you would like to see the military doing, not what the military is doing. Like that, if you think that the people of Afghanistan are going to look back on the 20 years of occupation and the schools we built and the police houses and all this other shit, they don't look at it favorably, brother. They don't. They're thrilled that we left. They're not exactly happy that the Taliban took back over, but they're also very happy that there's no longer drones overhead 24/7. So I think that your perspective as to our empire being perceived or received in a positive fashion is just not the reality of the people there.
Yeah, there are people that like are very South America, very grateful for cell phones. Thank you, capitalism, for giving me this access to cool stuff.
Agreed.
And like that kind of vibe, it could be kind of instantiated with U.S. I don't know if we need the military to necessarily
So
force
just
it.
really quick, I just found that answer. The second biggest military in the world is China, and they have one overseas military base in the Horn of Africa. And a RAND report is saying that they're actually seeking to expand that to 4 countries where they might potentially build military bases in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Cambodia, or Myanmar. Wow. So they might do that.
So U.S. has 750
on the
and
surface.
the second is 1.
I bet that we built underground bases in
I
Afghanistan.
didn't know it was that out of whack.
Yeah,
Gosh.
bro. Like when people get mad when I talk about it being the American empire, they're like, "We're not an empire." I'm like, "Yeah, we are, dude. You just don't understand. You just don't know what's actually happening."
It's the
And
liberal economic
empires
order.
have life cycles as well,
Yeah.
and we're kind of coming to an end of this kind of 250-year cycle that a lot of people are kind of very worried about, as the writings are on the wall.
Yep.
Like everything's kind of falling apart. You look at what happened in Rome. You look at what happened with all these other great empires before us. The decadence, the kind of confusion, especially when it comes to genders. all that it's kind of repeating. And how is it going to be playing out in a technocratic, artificially intelligence influenced world is something that I think is going to be far more devastating than a lot of people could even comprehend.
They're trying to forego a World War III. They don't want war. They don't want this.
I disagree.
What was it
Absolutely
called
disagree.
when one superpower starts to eclipse another?
Thucydides trap.
They want to
Thucydides
avoid Thucydides trap. So what they're doing, they want to create what's called a new world. Herbert Walker Bush said this in the 90s. We're going to make a new world order. This liberal economic order is coming to an end. We don't want it to become a war with China or Russia. So we're trying to avoid that. We're just trying to technocratically, financially, there's a word that starts with a V that would explain what we're doing. What they want to do is like variant, I don't know, but change it to a new world order that is without killing the world. You could argue maybe they are. Like the World Economic Forum is obsessed with it.
You're being too nice to them, and I would argue what you just said is the complete opposite of the truth.
But the problem is, like you said earlier, like what we're going to go over there and be like, in order to avoid war, we're going to start a bunch of war. It doesn't make sense. It's gotten to a point of almost lunacy. Well, yes, to a point of lunacy.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, this is the issue, though, is that if you agree with this liberal world order agenda and that you're willing to force any nation that is unwilling to acquiesce via violence, which is what we're talking about. Putin is a nationalist. China is not interested in necessarily being part of the New World Order or the liberal world order. They want their sphere of influence. They want to have autonomy. They want to be left alone, largely. So we're at loggerheads, and what we're facing is a nation with 1.5 billion people and 300 advanced nuclear weapons, and a nation with 100 million people and 6,000 advanced nuclear weapons, the most advanced nuclear arsenal in the world. And they're telling you no. So what do you do then? Well, the answer is obviously you back off. You don't go to war with nuclear powers with 1.7 billion combined people. It's total lunacy.
Well, it's not just nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are like sticks and stones compared to the latest kind of advancements that they have to, I would say, fifth generational warfare, but more importantly, unconventional warfare that I think already is being waged against the people of this world in many strange ways that we still don't even comprehend right now. Because if you look at the situation, turbo cancers going up, obesity going up, infertility going up. All of those are signs. People not having families, fatherless homes, all of those major hallmarkers going up. And then no one's really talking about these larger issues. It makes you kind of wonder what's really going on here. From my perspective, Ian, I would absolutely disagree with you. I would say what you said is the complete opposite of what's happening here. And I would say these guys are coalescing, working together in such a way in order to, of course, not have any allegiance to any particular country, but to have allegiance for themselves and the uber elites who want to live forever and upload their consciousness into this larger kind of internet, ether, AI future, as of course they see everyone as plebs and they want to depopulate them and call them and make them the slave class that of course is going to be cleaning up their trash or cleaning up or doing whatever small petty tasks that need to get done.
I believe you're right, that there is a corporate technocratic movement to do that, to enslave the population, but I think they're doing it to bypass World War III. They don't want it to happen because they don't want to be the kings of nuclear wreckage. They want to put people in like, psychedelic pods or whatever. They want to like quell and sedate the populace of the planet so that we can sort of, and it seems like it's very communist, like the corporate control. If you ever work for a corporation, it's very communist, like, or at least it's very like totalitarian, I guess, and communism is a form of totalitarianism.
It's authoritarian, but at least it's
oligarchy.
Voluntarily entered into.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
So,
is I can actually quit and go to a different corporation that doesn't treat me like crap.
Technocracy is not voluntary. Technocracy is like, we're using Google, and Google's doing whatever Google's doing behind the scenes, and it's not up to me.
Well, and what makes it even more nefarious is that it's being implemented by democratically elected people that are implementing these plans surreptitiously. They're not advertising it. They're just like you have all these young global leaders, Gavin Newsom and Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and the lunatic from Australia, I forget her name. But they don't really put it out there that, I am implementing the world, like you voted for me or someone put me in power, and now I'm going to implement the World Economic Forum's plan across the world along with all of these people working in tandem. They don't tell us that.
Here's the thing. Last 80 years, horrible as far as we can tell, geopolitically horror. U.S. military, 700 military bases, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. I mean, the list goes on. Is it not better that we have a technocratic one world? I mean, what's better? Is it better to have this super liberal military power bombing and controlling, and then it's just going to come to a head until everyone else has had it, and then it's going to be a...
I have a very strong answer to that one. And would you like to have an off ramp? Would you like to have a plan B? Because if you have a global technocratic system, there is no escape hatch. You are doomed to whatever they deem you destined to.
There's no sovereignty. There's no personal
it's
liberty.
horrific.
There's no personal responsibility. It's a system deciding what is best for the system and not for you as an individual to decide your own path in life as you're giving up all autonomy.
But if we came to World War III and it was total nuclear annihilation, it could be even worse than that
Well,
afterwards.
total nuclear annihilation is obviously worst case scenario, but I'm just saying, like, that's a terrible false binary to put me into.
But-
technocratic globalism or nuclear holocaust,
Or-
World War III. It's
or
like,
more of this.
neither, thank you.
Or more
know?
of liberal economic order, more of American military control. Like, what is those three things? We got American military obsession, or we've got technocratic
It's not
control.
that. It's
or
not
we've
that black
got-
and white.
We got tribalism all
I
over
think
again.
we first have to kind of diagnose the problem. I kind of, Zuby, I kind of described what I kind of see happening. I saw the CIA work with the Chinese government specifically when it came to engineering what I believe to be a larger biological agent that I think they deliberately released on the world. I think them working together highlights how it's not the best interests of countries, but a kind of bigger kind of elitist class working against everyone. That's my kind of understanding of it. What's your understanding of the world and how it kind of works and operates, and who's on the top of this kind of pyramid that we all keep talking about? Sorry, that's like a very like boom, give us everything right now kind of question, and I apologize if I'm just kind of throwing it at you.
I'm going to come at this from a different angle, and I have a belief that the problem of all of human history and pretty much every country, you know, whenever people ask me who do you think runs the world, or who's this, who's they, or whatever, I think that ultimately, when it comes down to it, the power always resides with the people, and the problem is the people don't know that and realize it.
Yep.
The average person doesn't realize it. If you want to see a microcosm of this, think back to the 2020 to 2022 era I refer to as the scamdemic, right? So take something like the mask mandates. Do you know what it would have taken to end that? Everyone just take your masks off.
Right.
Just take them off. Just take them off, and it's a wrap. You think someone's going to come and like try to? If just one person does it, target that guy,
right?
Get him back in line, or whatever. If everyone was just like, you know what, this is dumb. Like, no, we're not doing this. It ends right there with the mandate, with vax mandates, whatever it is. I know a young lady. Her brother. I don't know which city he's in, but he was in the police force. And when they were pushing the V mandate amongst that police force, the police officers together, collectively, whether they'd taken the shot or not, or were for it, against it, they all just collectively agreed, no, we don't support this mandate, right? We're not going to have our fellow law enforcement brothers and sisters being forced to do this or being pushed out of the force because they're not comfortable with it, or they don't want to. The next day, the mandate dropped.
Yep.
They just stood together collectively and were like, no, this isn't right. We stand together, and that's it. And they were like, oh, okay, well, if you're all standing together, we can't enforce this on you. What, you're going to lose your entire police force? No, of course not.
Right.
So they back off. And I think that this scales in general. I think especially where you have countries with democratic processes, right? Like I've made this point so many times. I've made people angry on the internet many times as the British outsider who looks at the USA, and I see that it's not 330 million people in this country. It's definitely at least 350 million. And I look at who the presidential elections come down to. 2016, you can have Hillary Clinton or you can have Donald Trump. 2020, you can have Joe Biden or you can have Donald Trump. This year, it's looking like it's going to be you can have Joe